For many years in Nigeria, women have been victims of gender-based violence, otherwise termed as violence against women. They are either attacked at home by their husbands, male lovers or relatives, or outside the home by rogues on the street or even fellow workers in the office. The United Nations Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. The World Health Organization states that there are many forms of violence against women, including sexual, physical or emotional abuse by an intimate partner, physical or sexual abuse by family members or others, sexual harassment and abuse by authority figures such as teachers, police officers or employers, trafficking for forced labor or sex, and such traditional practices as forced or child marriages, dowry-related violence and honor killings, when women are murdered in the name of family honor. Systematic sexual abuse in conflict situations is another form of violence against women. This violence is a menace in the global society. In Africa, Nigeria inclusive, the incidence is high. Daily, women and girls face loads of gender-based violence in our society, yet they silently cover their experiences to avoid stigmatization or protect the image of their families.
Most ladies, they will just come to the station. They don't want you to make it public. They want it private. They are afraid. They don't want people to victimize them. They will just come report and they don't want to follow up the case. They are ashamed and they are afraid of what people will say about them.
Reports at some judiciary institutions in Abuja Municipal Area Council indicate several cases of violence against women and girls. Unfortunately, most of these cases are kept silent.
You know, when some of them come out, they feel they're going to, they feel embarrassed. And after talking, they don't know where they're going to face action. So most of them don't come out to talk. For those ones that come out to talk, you either get to know through someone that is someone, you either get to know maybe through the wounds they sustain, through the physical abuse.
Rape is a devastating form of gender-based violence, but in Nigeria, rape cases rarely see the light of the day. This is worse in northern Nigeria. The penal code that governs northern Nigeria places more emphasis on the role of a witness in a rape case than on the welfare and protection of the victim. Most incidences of rape do not take place where there would be witnesses. In the very rare occasions where there are witnesses, they are often unwilling to testify in court.
They report such cases to police station, and police station they're saying that most of them they don't charge the issue to court because it's family affairs, it's being regarded as family issue. Some maybe community leaders, some family heads will come and say let it die there. So most of the cases they don't even go out of the police station. Most of the cases are not being reported.
There is a consensus amongst relevant authorities, including the Abuja Municipal Area Council, Social Welfare Department, and some district heads in Abuja, that there is an increase in violence against women cases.
Formerly, we receive these cases of violence against women once in a while, but nowadays it's too frequent. Within a year, we might record up to 15 to 20 cases of violence against.
In the FCT, most cases are settled out of court, but in impossible situations, the parties are referred to the National Human Rights Commission for further action. Data from the Karu and Garki village police stations reveal that only few cases of violence against women are ever charged to court.
Within the National Human Rights Commission, we have received maybe over 200 cases. We receive over 200 cases in a year, coming from the head office in the FCT here.
Data from the World Health Organization the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and the South African Medical Research Council show that globally, 35.6% of women have ever experienced either non-partner sexual violence or physical or sexual violence by an intimate partner, or both. Worldwide, up to 50% of sexual assaults are committed against girls under 16. An estimated 150 million girls under the age of 18 suffered some form of sexual violence in 2002 alone. In Nigeria, under the Constitution, women are protected from discrimination, but customary and religious laws, including the Sharia law in the 12 northern states, restrict women's rights in practice. There are a number of legal provisions protecting women from violence, strengthened by the recently Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015. Rape is widespread. Societal pressure and the stigma associated with rape reduced the percentage of rapes reported and the penalties imposed for conviction. Domestic violence against women is widespread, underreported, and is often considered socially acceptable. Surveys undertaken in 2012 and 2013 indicated that around 30% of women had experienced some form of physical, sexual, or emotional domestic violence. In Abuja, there has been increase in the rate of reported cases.
I would say it has increased based on the data we have in the investigation department of the Human Rights Commission. I would say it has increased, but on the other hand, reportage has also increased. Whereas in about 10 cases of violence against women, only one woman spoke up maybe about 10 years back. Now we have about 4 women speaking up. Maybe that is why it now seems as if it has arisen. But the general, the general picture is as if it has arisen because we are getting to hear about it more.
The causes of domestic violence against women are of many schools of thought. Some hold that the psychological status of perpetrators is a factor. They consider personality traits and mental characteristics of these offenders, sudden bursts of anger, poor impulse control, and poor self-esteem. Abusers abuse in order to establish and maintain control over their partners. Abusers' efforts to dominate have been attributed to low self-esteem or feelings of inadequacy, unresolved childhood conflicts, the stress of poverty, hostility and resentment towards women, called misogyny, personality disorders, genetic tendencies, and social cultural influences. Social theorists consider external factors in the perpetrator's environment, such as family structure, stress, and social learning, to be motivators. Abuse observed or experienced as a child is also a factor considered. The psychological profile of men who abuse their wives argue that they have borderline personalities that are developed early in life. If one observes violent behavior, one is more likely to imitate it. If there are no negative consequences and the victim also accepts the violence with submission, then the behavior will likely continue. Many cases of domestic violence against women occur due to jealousy when the spouse is either suspected of being unfaithful or is planning to leave the relationship. Violence is not always caused by stress, but it may be one way that some people respond to stress. Couples in poverty may be more likely to experience domestic violence due to increased stress and conflicts about finances and other aspects. Most authorities seem to agree that abusive personalities result from a combination of several factors to varying degrees.
Sometimes the causes might lead to maybe ignorance, illiteracy, or frustration from the man can lead to violence in the home.
The effects of gender-based violence are numerous, except for the immediate visible evidence, such as bruises, and injuries from the attacks, most adverse health and social outcomes are often not seen. Research has shown that prolonged or acute stress can lead to mental disorders, chronic illnesses, and even compromise the immune system, predisposing for the spread of cancer and other viral infections. Sustained and acute elevated stress levels have also been linked to cardiovascular disease, hypertension, gastrointestinal disorders, chronic pain, and the development of insulin-dependent diabetes. Violence against women also leads to genital trauma. While they battle with the emotional and psychological trauma, they also have to battle with other physical trauma, such as that of their genitals. Violence against the pregnant woman can trigger premature labor, delivery of low birth weight infants, and even pregnancy loss.
The agency has seen a high influx of cases based on gender-based violence, cases of incest, cases of rape, of juveniles, and the agency has been...
Intimate partner violence can often lead to unwanted pregnancies, abortions, HIV, and other sexually transmitted infections. Psychologically, victims of intimate partner violence revert to abuse of some sort, such as the use of alcohol, abuse of prescription medication, tobacco or other drugs. Depression and suicidality are tied to the feeling of being worthless. The controlling behaviors of many men, often associated with physical and sexual violence, also involves the limiting of his female partner's social and family interactions and being suspicious of her unfaithfulness. These greatly affect the woman's social interactions and sense of prestige in the society.
This particular one, it was both the husband and the child that were beating the mother. You understand? I called the three of them. Fortunately enough, after like 2 weeks and some days, the woman appeared at the police station, gave me her statement, which I incidented.
The effects of violence against women are endless. As the days go by, new negative consequences emerge. While the ugliness of violence against women is evident, there is a need for intervention. What about justice? What about a woman having the kind of security that will ensure her safety inside the walls of her home as well as outside?
We take her to hospital first for medical attention, and we make sure we save life.
Everybody is participating.
When we are done with that, we bring her back.
Whoa.
We make sure we arrest
the violence against men and
the offender
in the Nigerian context.
Against the victim.
And when you write it down, one person.
Men and girls in Nigeria have several times run to the seats of justice, only for justice to go further away from these victims.
I used to feel sad to see that it's like the law of this country is protecting the offenders. Sometimes we charge them to court, they'll come back to the street and commit the same offense. I used to feel...
For this reason, the Intercommunity Development Society, IDS, a non-governmental organization supported by Justice for All of the UK Department for International Development, has been working tirelessly to be the voice of these voiceless ones by bringing justice to their doorsteps through their interventions.
Over the years, IDS has been working with many development partners, including the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development.
The NGO has the zero tolerance to violence against women as one of its major focuses. To achieve this, it has the following aims. 1. To ensure justice service providers timely arrest and prosecute perpetrators of gender-based violence. 2. To establish support and guidance for violence against women victims, to forward their cases to relevant authorities. 3. To work with civil society organizations in advocacy for the implementation of violence against women policies. 4. To create awareness amongst women and girls on their rights to live free of sexual and gender-based violence. Recently, and in times past, IDS has been a voice for the timid and ill-informed in Abuja.
IDS is currently working with Justice for All, a UK Department for International Development as DFID project in Nigeria, aimed at addressing the issue of violence against women. Under this project, what we are doing is to mobilize and strengthen the capacity of the supply side actors, the police, the magistrate, and social welfare officers to increase arrest and prosecution of perpetrators of gender-based violence.
Until of recent, women in Nigeria have been relegated to the back and denied their rights. Masters in the kitchen and mistresses in the bedroom. These have always been the positions of Nigerian women. Perhaps this gives the male folk more impetus to abuse them. After the abuse comes silence and a false submission, as the women folk consider it their fate. Ignorant of the laws enshrined in the Constitution and the United Nations Human Rights Charter, the faces of these gullible women and girls remain somber. In a twist, ignorance is not just the obstacle of these women. Government's proper implementation of these policies is another setback.
So when it is in practice, the woman's voice is not heard. So I would tend to say there are no policies for the woman. There are no policies giving her the rights. There are no policies empowering her to exist with the full rights, human.
Of the victims whose cases reach authorities, many complain of not gaining closure or justice. On payment of a token as bribe, offenders are often let loose by officials. Therefore, timely arrest and proper prosecution of these perpetrators has been whisked into thin air. Another twist is the stigma and shame associated to being a victim of violence against women. In Abuja, just like other parts of Nigeria, women and girls shy from reporting such cases lest they become spectacles of public disgrace. So, while the law exists, salient laws of human tradition, norms and values override human rights.
So in the first place, we need to have laws that that recognize our culture as Africans. So we have to make laws that are very practical. We also need to have people who have the duty to intervene in issues like this. Maybe the judiciary, maybe cases like this are going to the judiciary. They have to take it into recognition the African culture.
The same society that is supposed to support and protect victims of violence against women becomes the very one crucifying them. This must be stopped. There is need for justice service providers to ensure timely arrest and prosecution of perpetrators of gender-based violence. There is also a need to increase pressure on service providers to ensure perpetrators are brought to book.
It's very important to get people to speak up against violence right as a child up to the time she becomes a woman.
Some victims simply need a little support to voice out and reach for help. As much as the rights of Nigerian women and girls have been severely drummed, many remain ignorant of their rights. Put another way, they consider their rights to be mere statements on paper smeared with ink. Someone needs to reassure the Nigerian woman that she can seek for justice and get it. IDS has been working tirelessly to develop all materials that will provide information and guidance where violence against women victims can seek justice.
Yes, we have organized workshops severally and invited relevant groups of people. What we chiefly want to do is, in most cases, to train those people so that when they go out, they will form a coalition, so that even at the community level, everyone is made aware of his or her own rights. And I'm sure the society will be better for it.
IDS has been embarking on two types of campaigns. One, the campaign for effective laws, policies and institutions that prevent violence against women and support survivors. Two, campaign for the change in individual behavior, social norms and attitudes towards women and girls through public awareness.
As an organization dedicated to addressing the issue of violence against women in the society, we have lined up programs like collaborating with both local and international development agencies to increase awareness on the issue of violence against women.
It is the dream of IDS to enhance CSO service providers' capacity to be aware of their responsibility for the reduction of violence against women cases in the Abuja Municipal Area Council, FCT and Nigeria at large. Also, increase awareness of violence against women in the society and provide information on where victims of violence against women can seek justice.
We also advise those that have access to our toll-free helpline to call the number so that they can receive support and guidance on the appropriate authority or institution that they can report their case and access justice within a very short possible time. What they're supposed to do immediately they suffer any violence is to report the perpetrator to a police station that is closer to them, and if there is no police station, they can go to traditional rurals and other service providers.
We look forward to a future society where women and girls are free from all forms of violence and injustice.